U.S. military weapons and equipment terrorist forces have seized. We're back with Republican Congressman Mac Thornberry of Texas. He's the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Mr. Chairman, the Iraqi Prime Minister himself, Haider al-Abadi, he said today that Iraqi security forces, they lost, get this, roughly 2,300 U.S.-made Humvees when they abandoned Mosul, the second largest city in Iraq. ISIS took over those weapons. They're using them now basically as improvised explosive devices. This is very worrisome, especially considering the fact the U.S. is still providing weapons to the Iraqi military right now. How concerned are you that they might abandon yet more U.S.-supplied weapons?
Well, I am concerned about that. Remember that Mosul was lost about a year ago. So those 2,300 Humvees were lost a year ago. And so what has happened as far as U.S. and allied strategy for dealing with ISIS in the last year? It has not gone very well. And I think it is true that it is possible that if we don't change our strategy, it will continue not to go well, and we could lose further weapons that we might provide the Iraqis.
Because Barbara Starr just reported from the Pentagon, the U.S. now wants to provide, 2,000 AT-4 anti-tank weapons to the Iraqi military. 1,000 already have been provided. Are you worried that they could wind up in the hands of ISIS?
Of course. Two things come to mind. One is our military has said consistently that if they could go into the field with those they train and advise, they would be much more effective. So far, the president has not allowed them to go into the field with those they train and advise. Secondly, I know a good place to send those other 1,000 anti-armor missiles, and that is to Ukraine, because that's exactly what they're desperate for, and it is only that show of strength that's going to cause Mr. Putin to rethink the next offensive that he's going to launch.
Speaking of Putin and the U.S.-Russian relationship, the U.S. Navy today released very dramatic video. I don't know if you've seen it. We'll show it to our viewers right now of a Russian aircraft flying right past the USS Ross. That's a destroyer in international waters in the Black Sea, a little bit more than 1,000 feet away from the USS Ross. What should the U.S. do about this?
Well, I think it's clear that Putin is going to continue to push at every opportunity and be more aggressive. He is following exactly Lenin's maxim that probe with a bayonet. When you encounter mush, keep moving until you hit steel. And so they are conducting very aggressive maneuvers with their aircraft across Europe and elsewhere. And now against our ship that was in international waters, they're trying to warn us off. And they're going to continue these sorts of aggressive maneuvers to try to intimidate us, like any bully would, to back down.
Mac Thornberry is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.